You know, chipping doesn't have to be that hard. In these next 3 videos, I'm going to share with you some of the real secrets to making chipping easy. People have told me time and time again this has helped them tremendously on their short game, and I can't wait to share it with you. Let's go ahead and get started. I've got an awesome video for you. I'm going to teach you exactly the pros pitching technique so that you can get those amazing shots around the green. Now, I'm going to teach you a lot of technical detail in here. It's going to teach you just to do it just like the pros, but there's one thing. You can do all those pieces of technique right. If you don't get this right, you're never going to get the good quality, consistency, and solid strikes like you want. You're going to have those chunks and thins that go in there. All right, so let's jump right into the technique here. The first thing is when I'm hitting a pitch shot, I want my body to rotate through this shot. And a big mistake I see is players setting up with their feet square like this. So when my feet are square, I feel like I'm kind of hitting my arms across my body. It's not as easy to rotate through. In fact, when I start to do that a little bit and rotate the way I'm supposed to, I naturally start to cheat with my feet open. If you want to pitch like the pros, what they're doing is they're taking this lead foot and they're opening it about 30 to 45 degrees. So this is square, putting it up here. The right foot is also turned forward probably 15, 20 degrees this way. Now, if I'm looking at my ball position, you can see if I drew a line from there, that would be on my left heel. It would also be on my right toe. This is why there's so much confusion about ball position. Do I play it on my front foot? Do I play it on my back foot? Well, I'm playing it on both feet right now. It's on my back toe and my lead heel because my feet are close together and they're angled forward a little bit. So that's why you hear so many different people saying different things. This should be about how you want to set up. Now from there, what I don't want to do, it actually throws a wrench in everything, is I don't want to get my shirt buttons behind the golf ball. You see in the full swing, when I get behind the golf ball, that allows me to get a ton of lag, release that club in front, and I get speed, lots of speed. When I'm making a full swing, I want the ball to be hit hard. I want it to go a long way. With short game, I don't want it to be hit hard. I actually want it to be very soft and take all the power out of it so that if I do hit it a little too hard or a little too short, it basically goes the same distance. Now, what I'm going to do to make that happen is I'm going to keep my shirt buttons over top of the golf ball or just slightly in front. So if I was to hang this club down from my shirt buttons here, if I stood right over top of this golf ball, this would be directly over the golf ball. I'm actually going to have a little more weight on my left, just barely a little more weight on my left until that would hit about an inch in front of the golf ball. That's how you want it to feel the entire short game, anytime you're doing short game, especially when you're pitching. So from there, my feet are open, my shirt buttons are in front, and then finally, here's the big piece. I want to make sure that as I go back and through, I don't get armsy and kind of start jabbing at it. So I'm going to go ahead, almost like a pendulum, I'm going to let my left arm swing and kind of hit a low point and hit the ground at the same point each time. And then from there, I'm going to start to rotate my body on top of that. So I'm doing a pendulum, plus I'm rotating my body back and through, and you can see as that syncs up, I feel completely effortless. I feel like I could sit here and hit the exact same spot on the ground every single time. I'm not manipulating the club at all. I'm just rotating back and through, almost as if I was going to toss a golf ball toward the screen, and I'm letting my arms swing as I'm doing that. That gets you a ton of consistency. So let's go ahead and try one out here, and you'll notice how this is really smooth in the transition and the follow through. So feet open, chest in front. We're going to hit a little mini shot here. There we go. Couldn't get much better than that. Nice little 1 foot draw on there. So nice and smooth tempo. Hit that really, really clean. Now, there's a great training aid that can help you get this feeling. It's called the Orange Whip Wedge. So this is not the normal Orange Whip. It's got a wedge head on it, and it's got this real whippy, flimsy, almost like rubber shaft that you use. The cool thing about this is, if I start jerking the club at all, this is the piece you have to get right. I just talked about that pendulum swinging and then my body rotating. So that creates a little effortless momentum to where I can just rotate back and through. And you notice even with one arm, that club is hitting the same spot on the ground every single time. The destroyer of this is taking my hands and arms and getting quick in the backswing and quick in the transition, and now all of a sudden nothing's working together. So you imagine if I took my hands and arms and I started to flick my wrists back, that club starts to bend like this as it gets started. And then if I get quick in my transition, the club bends like this. And if I kind of stop my body rotation and kind of jerk at the end, the club bends the other way. So the cool thing about this club is I want to make this little pitch shot swing by using the momentum of my body. And if I do that, I want to feel like this club hardly ever bends at all. So very smooth takeaway, very smooth transition. So what I'm wanting to have happen is I'm slowing down, starting the transition. I almost want gravity to let this club start to fall rather than me trying to manipulate it. And as it starts to fall, I'm going to make my finish, and I want to rotate on through so smoothly that the club never comes to abrupt halt here. If I was to stop my body, it would go something more like that, and it would really kick back up. So I'm really feeling like I rotate on through, and it's so smooth here that there's no bend in the shaft here. So the start, the transition, and the finish, if I rotate and do that pivot correctly, I don't get the club whipping around all over the place. Let's go ahead and try another one out here. So I'm just going to keep my momentum, my pivot. Let's see if we can hit a nice clean one. There we go. Not going to get a whole lot better than that. And it's almost identical to my first shot where I feel like nice solid contact, and I feel like I could hit 100 in a row and never have to worry about chunking them or thinning them or anything like that. So Orange Whip gave us a special deal. I have a link down below in the description. If you click that link and purchase from Orange Whip, we get a few bucks, helps us support the channel, make more great content like this. And this is really just an awesome training aid here. So I highly recommend if you're struggling with your pitching and getting that tempo right, this is the best tempo trainer, the best wedge trainer that I've found to really get that down and hit clean shot after clean shot. Now, you don't have to have one of these things. If you just want to use your normal club and have the exact same feelings that we talked about just there, that's completely fine too. You can do that with a normal wedge. It just is a little bit easier if you have the whippy shafted wedge. You might learn it a little bit quicker if you do that.
I'm so excited to share with you this drill that's really helped my short game, and I hope it's a game changer for you too. If you want to be really good around the greens, you have to be able to control where this club is hitting the ground in relationship to the golf ball. If you're not able to do that, you're going to tend to hit chunks, thins, and blades. And I tell you what, there's nothing more frustrating than having an easy up and down for par and then blading it over the green into the bunker on the other side, then ending up with double instead. I've seen that destroy many rounds. But when I see people really struggle with this, what's happening is they're typically locking up their knees and their hips, and they're doing everything with their arms too much. So they'll bring the club up, the trail arm will kind of go back behind them a little bit, they'll bend it a lot, and then the wrist will really hinge. And when you do that, you come down very, very steep and across the ball, and it just makes it so difficult to control where you're hitting the ground. If we want to be good at hitting the ground in the same spot every single time, we have to get everything moving back and through together. We have to unlock our legs and be able to swing back and through. And this drill is so good to help you do that. So first, let's talk about a couple quick setup tips here. So number one, I want to have my feet pretty close together, a club head or two apart. The reason for this is if I have my feet further apart, I'm going to tend to want to shift my weight to one side and then the other. Now that's great for generating power, but we're not trying to generate power here. We're trying to get good at controlling where we're hitting the ground in relationship to the golf ball. And if we have our feet closer together, it's much easier to stay centered and do that very well. So that's number one. Number two is we want to have our feet opened up a little bit. That makes it a lot easier to get the body working through. Imagine if I set up with my feet closed. If I do that, my hips are going to stall out. I'm going to hit a roadblock, and I'm going to tend to kind of flip the hands through. Again, that's going to make it really difficult to control where we're hitting the ground. Now, you can play around with it. I like to be roughly 20, 25 degrees, but play around with how open your stance is. I've seen players with their feet 45 degrees open before, so play around with that to find what works best for you. Lastly is our ball position. It's going to be roughly about in the middle of my stance. It may look like it's on my back foot, but that's just because my feet are really close together. If I lifted up my back foot, it's pretty close to my lead foot as well. So it's going to be roughly about in the middle of my stance. Now initially here, I want you to set up away from the golf ball. So I'm going to get in my setup here for this drill, and I'm just going to do some practice swings at first, but I'm going to take my lead hand and I'm going to put it above my trail shoulder. Now what this does is this is going to keep my trail arm from bending too much and going back behind me, and it's going to force me to unlock my body and get everything working through together. Now when you're holding your arm, you're just trying to keep it from going back behind you. You're not trying to push it into your body. It's just kind of hanging there and keeping you from moving it back behind you. So we're just going to set up here, and I just want you to go back and through. So unlock those legs, get those knees working, get those hips working, get that chest working back and through. And you're going to find that when you do this, it's so much easier to hit the ball or hit the ground in the same spot every single time. I'm looking at a little speck on the mat here, and I'm seeing that speck move every single time I swing through. So get a bunch of these in to get comfortable with this. And you can see when I'm doing this that my knees are moving around, my trail arm isn't bending very much, it's maybe bending a little bit, and my trail wrist is just hinging a little bit. So it may be something to get used to, but get used to this feeling of going back and forth. Now, once you get that right feeling, now we can step up and try to hit a ball here. So let's go ahead and get our normal setup. So again, feet close together, opened up, ball about in the middle of my stance, lead arm or lead hand on my trail elbow. I'm just gonna go back and through here. So that was a very, very good contact, medium trajectory shot. Now, once you get really good with this, then you can start controlling the trajectory there. So that was kind of my stock medium trajectory. Let's go over what I'm feeling there. So I'm taking that normal setup, but when I'm coming through, I'm feeling like this club, when it gets about belt level, is staying parallel with my hands. It's at the same level of my hands. And that's gonna give me that stock medium trajectory kind of pitch shot. So let's do another one here where I'm getting that nice medium trajectory. So again, really, really good contact, medium trajectory kind of shot. Well, let's say I want to drive it in a little bit lower. I want to bring it in lower. Maybe I got some wind in my face. Maybe I want to land it in the middle and kind of run it all the way to the back. Well, if I'm trying to bring it in really low, I'm going to feel like when I release that club is staying below my hand when I get to that point. So when my hands get up to about belt level, that club is still below my hand, and that's going to allow me to de-loft it as I'm coming through. And the other thing I may do is I may play it a little bit further back in my stance, more off my big toe. So let's go ahead and give that a try. More off my big toe here. And I'm going to feel like as I'm coming through that this club is staying below my hand as I'm coming through there. We're going to get a nice low trajectory. So you can see there, that was much lower trajectory, and I was able to keep that club below my hand there. Well, now let's say I want the high soft one. Well, the high soft one, I'm going to have that normal address position, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the face about 10, 15 degrees. So I'm going to take that face and open it up just a little bit. And then when I'm going to feel on my release here, I'm going to feel like when my hand gets up to that belt level, that club is a little bit above my hand, and that's going to allow me to release the club a little bit more into the ball. So let's see if we can get a nice high soft one here. So again, normal address position. I've got the face a little bit open. Let's see if we can get a nice high soft one here. So you can see I got that one to go nice and high, club above the hands. That ball hit somewhere up a little bit, about 5 feet higher on the screen here. And that's what I'd be doing if I want to get that nice high soft one.
All right, today we're going to talk about how to hit those wedges that have one hop and stop, nice spin on them, really good action. There's a few key things you can do that make this a lot easier and to know how to spot the right conditions where you can hit those spinning shots. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's dive right into it. This video isn't going to be tons of fluff. I'm going to get right into the technique and we're going to talk about how to do this. Piece number one, you want to make sure that you're really aggressive, accelerate with your body, and accelerate through the shot. So if I have a little shorter backswing and I really move on through there aggressively, I don't want to start to slow down. When my body slows down, what ends up happening is my hands and wrists take over, I start to flip it a little bit, and that's that shot that drives us crazy where it just kind of floats up in the air, not much spin. A lot of times it lands short of the green, really, really aggravating. It's nice to have those low penetrating shots that cut through the wind, stay nice and low, tons of spin on them so we can hit over a bunker, something like this, and then really get the ball to grab. So that's the first key. Have to be really aggressive through there when I'm hitting this shot. Number two, I like to open my stance a little bit and preset my hips a little bit open. If I do that, so if I go ahead and open my feet slightly, I'll even have my right foot slightly open here, along with my left foot, that's gonna help me to open everything up. As I start to open everything up, that makes it easier to get this shaft leaning forward so I can make a cleaner contact on this ball. Now I'm gonna hit a few, some of them are gonna be good, some of them aren't gonna be that good. We're gonna try to hit a nice low spinners on every single one of these. So now, aggressive through the shot, I've opened both my feet up and I really feel like I'm gonna pinch this ball into the turf, kind of smush it against the club face. Not too good on that one, hit a little off the heel, but not too bad. Definitely a decent shot up there. Not as much spin as the one before. So the third key here, we've got our aggressive acceleration through the ball, we've got our feet open. Let's talk about why we want to have our body open, why we want that forward shaft lean. There's something called, a lot of people refer to this as spin loft mountain. And basically what this says is, if you can kind of imagine my angle of attack or how I'm hitting into the ground is fairly level. I'm taking a little bit of a divot here, but I'm not chopping way down into it. Hitting down just very slightly. Now, if I don't have very much loft on this face, then it's not going to create much backspin. Imagine I had a sledgehammer and I'm just hitting this golf ball with my sledgehammer. It's going to knock it up there. It's going to be low because there's no loft on the sledgehammer, but it's just a knuckleball. The ball's not going to have any backspin at all. As I start to add more and more loft, the difference between how I'm hitting down in the ball, which would be this angle, so say I'm hitting down very slightly, and the difference in loft on my face starts to get bigger. So here's the sledgehammer, swinging level, no loft. As I start to add loft to my club face, that creates more spin. So this is what they call spin loft, and the more spin loft you get, or the bigger the difference between the direction the club's swinging and the loft on the face, the bigger the difference between those two, the more spin you're going to get. That's why you always want to use like a 60-degree wedge or at worst a 56-degree wedge when you're doing this. So as I add more and more and more loft, all the way up to, playably kind of high 40s, low 50s amount of loft on the face, that's going to give me the most spin. If I keep on adding loft, so kind of imagine as a mountain, as I get more and more loft, spin goes up and up and up. It kind of reaches that max around 50 degrees or so, and then it starts to lose a little bit of spin because I lose friction. There's a little bit of dirt in the way, there's a little bit of water in the way, whatever it is, you lose a little bit of friction between the club face and the ball. So as I add too much loft and I have this face way open like this, like a flop shot, it will go high, but it won't have any spin on it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take a lofted wedge so that I keep that loft up to get the spin, but I'm also making sure that I can be nice and consistent and hit ball first by de-lofting it and swinging through. If I took a lower lofted club, like a pitching wedge or a 9-iron, and I went ahead and flipped it and got the same amount of loft as I'm doing here, you really wouldn't get the spin because my strike would be too inconsistent. You wouldn't really get that compression on the golf ball, or it would be, one of them you compress, one of them you wouldn't compress. It's tougher to control it. So again here, now that we realize that, I have my 60-degree wedge. I'm gonna play that ball when my feet are open. If you're looking at it from my left heel, it's just barely behind my left heel. If I add my right foot in there, it's kind of just in front of my right foot. And that's about where I like to play it, to really allow myself to hit down slightly, have the shaft leaning forward, and still get some pretty good spin. So again, I got my 60-degree wedge, and because I'm opening, my shaft is really gonna lean ahead. I'm gonna de-loft this club slightly. I'm gonna get around that 50-degree spin loft. Oh, and that one I chunked a little bit. Didn't quite hit it as well, so not as much spin on it. Still a decent shot, but you'll notice how that one rolled out a little bit. And that's gonna bring me my next key here, is not every single shot you're gonna spin. No matter how good you get at these, unless you're on the PGA Tour, you're not gonna just spin the cover off of every single one of them. You have to hit it nice and clean. If I get anything between my face and the ball, that causes it to slide. The ball doesn't grab the face, it slides up it. So even a little bit of dirt on the face, a little bit of grass, a little bit of water, anything like that is really gonna cause it to lose some spin. So you have to have your wedge really, really clean. So here, I like to keep a little brush with me. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but I just have a little brush on my bag, and I just wipe off the face, keep that nice and dry and clean, keep all the stuff out of the grooves. Grooves actually are misunderstood. If you don't have any grooves on the wedge, it creates just as much spin if there's nothing between the ball and the club. It's like drag slicks on a drag car. No grooves, all rubber to pavement, pure friction. Same thing with a wedge. But in reality, every time you hit, there's a little bit of grass, a little bit of water, something getting between your club face and the middle of the club, or the ball in the middle of the club. That's why you'll see little pieces of grass on your club face for where it impacted. Every time that happens, you need those grooves to allow that debris to go into the groove and for the face to grab the ball. If you had a perfect lie, you're setting it up off a tee or something like that, you wouldn't even need grooves on the club. That's why you spin it so much. Sometimes when you're on AstroTurf mats, you can really get a lot of spin on there. So here, again, I don't want to get much stuff between my club face and the ball. So the next thing is, when I do this, I want to visualize like I'm staying pretty low to the ground and I'm just kind of brushing the turf. I am going to get a little bit of a divot, but it's not going to really chop down a ton. You can have some good spin if you chop way down on it, but it's kind of hit or miss because sometimes you'll hit a little bit too far behind it. It won't really spin like you want it to. There we go, that's a nice one. It's gonna be a little short. Kicked off that downslope, but that had a lot of spin on it. Just got not the best kick because of the downslope there. All right, so now let's talk about what we're gonna do with our hips and then our hands and our arms. I open my feet so that when I hit this shot, my hips can open up. I really want them leading the way. Again, that's gonna help me de-loft the club like I need to. It's gonna help me have the hands leading the way to be consistent. And I'm really gonna be aggressive through the ball if I can have those hips kind of leading the way as I'm doing that. That one's got a ton of spin on it, a little low one. So we one stop and really check up. So that thing's coming in low, but then it's trying to grab there at the end. So the hips are really key to that. Feel like your hips are opening up as that's happening. And feel like your belt buckle especially is facing the target. Now last piece here again, I have to take a little bit of loft off this club so that I can be consistent and I can get the spin on there. Here's the move that most people get wrong when they're trying to take loft off the club. You don't simply push the face forward or push the hands forward. When you do that, look at my club face. It's gonna open up the club face. And when I try to just move the hands forward and hit that shot, it ends up going way to the right. Not a very good shot. I left it short of the green. It's not really compressed like I want it to be. The key there is that you have to de-loft the club by rolling the wrist or turning the wrist. So if you imagine, I'm gonna make a little setup position here. And when I come to contact, my hands are actually gonna be like this. I'm turning that club face down. The only reason the face is square is because I have the shaft lean forward. All right, so if I keep the club shaft straight up and down, there's my impact position. The only difference is when I really impact the ball, I'm actually gonna be here like this with the shaft lean forward. If I'm looking at it from this down the line view, as I'm coming into the ball, I'm rolling the face closed a little bit, and then I'm really pinching it, compressing it against the ground, or what feels like it's against the ground, covering that to really get a lot of spin, a lot of the bite on it. Let me go ahead and clean up this wedge one more time, and we'll try to get a nice low one, again with a lot of good spin on it. Yeah, hit that one nicely. So those are the keys to really getting those wedges to stop, check up for you. Number one, I'm gonna open my stance a little bit. Number two, I'm gonna keep the club nice and clean. I have to have a nice lie. It can't be wet. I can't have a lot of stuff behind the golf ball like being in the rough. It's not gonna spin very much. I'm gonna have my hands leaning forward, really compressing the golf ball. My hips are leading the way, and then the real secret to this, I have to have this de-lofting with my wrist, like I'm rotating this club. If I can put those together, then I can really pinch that ball, get a lot of spin on it. Now I talked about in this video a special move from turning your wrist down. Now it's really cool because not only will this help you to spin your wedges, really get those to bite, grab hard on the green, it helps you to pure your iron shots and can even help with your drivers. That's what I call the move in our Top Speed Golf system, and it's one of the missing links that takes regular golfers, everyday golfers, middle handicappers, up to being a low handicap and even getting close to hitting some pro caliber shots. I have an awesome bonus for you. I'm gonna play one of my best videos on the move with the tennis racket drill. You do this, you're gonna be spinning your wedges, you're gonna be hitting those crisp irons, and I can't wait to show it to you. Let's get started. Good player problems. We're gonna talk about shallowing that club shaft out as we're starting down, as we're doing this rotating of the face that we worked on in the last video. As we start this downswing, what you'll see with basically all of the top players is instead of coming kind of over the top and letting the hands come out away from their body, letting the club come out away from their body, again coming down steep into the ball and then having to open up, kind of fillet open the face and add loft to it. The flattening of the shaft should happen as soon as we start down. So as we start this downswing, what we want to have happening here, you can imagine that if I draw a line from the hosel of my club up through my right elbow, that's my swing plane line, my elbow plane. As I go to the top of the swing, I'm going to be slightly above that. And then as I start down, I want my hands to start to shallow out. I want the club to shallow out inside of this elbow plane. And at the same time, I'm going to be